Hello, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to those watching us. So, once again, we meet here for the program of the Delanne series. And today we have here in the studio with us our dear friend Faye Waddington. Hello, Faye.
Hello, Renee. It's a
How are
pleasure
you?
to be here. Thank you. I'm
Good.
fine.
It's a
Thank you very
pleasure to
much.
have you here today.
My pleasure.
We apologize for last Sunday. We had some technical problems, and here we are today. So, Faye will be talking to us today about the work of the Delanne, research about mediumship. It's a very interesting book. And then, Faye, will you give you an idea of the topics that Delanne deals in this book? It's another very interesting book by him.
Oh, yes.
So I'll briefly introduce Faye, just say a few words. um, Faye Waddington, she grew intensely attracted by the feeling of spirituality. And this is something that I felt just like you, attracted towards spirituality. And it's very interesting because this guides us in life to search for enlightenment and knowledge as well, and sacredness as well in general. So, as a child, she used to play with children whose address her mom could never identify in a small area where they lived. And also, she was under emotional pressure because she attended a religious school, and that was giving her suicidal thoughts. So she got tired of that. She preferred to go into arts, um, look for more spiritual growth in other places. So she visited and studied at several places, like for instance the Theosophical Society and also Seychelles Noyer, where she could actually feed from the spirituality. But then she finally went to the Spiritist Federation of the State of São Paulo, where she joined a medium's school. Unfortunately, she says that she couldn't finish that, but she started working and studying, and that has never stopped. So she was invited to do some work, charitable work, in the Little Child's Home, o Pequeno Lar da Criança, in Portuguese, a spiritist-run nursery that had become a school and a charity. So she worked there for years with a team of painters and musicians to provide healing. And this is very interesting because art provides healing to people in its many forms, and also to raise funds for the orphanage and nursery. So she also used to perform with this group at other centers and hospitals to support their project. So, in her work in aviation, she met other mediums and they quietly tried to make the difference in the work environment. So, back in the UK, she met Janet Duncan, and then she also met Elsa Rossi, who helped her to be closer and more involved with the British Union of Spiritist Society. And she has since helped with translations, book revisions, video subtitling, and also joining groups and giving her participation in many groups. So Faye is now very active in Spiritism, and she gives her contribution to many programs. And she's got also, for instance, Time to Talk and other programs where she is actively participating. So Faye, I've talked too much now. Welcome again. Good to have you here. And I'll hand it over to you now, Faye.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Well, I'm going to try. This is a vast subject and a vast book. It's a really hefty book, but wonderful. It's really wonderful. And what I'm trying to do is I've put the three titles of the original Recherche sur la médiumnité. Apologies for all the accents that are missing there. Um, because in order to do this, I chose to read as much as I could the book in its original version in French. Then, because I'm not absolutely fluent like that, I read the translation, the official translation in Portuguese. And I was trying to do that to express my findings and the ideas in English. So please bear with me if it gets a bit confusing at some points. That's why, because there are 3 languages working there. But while doing that, I carried on with an old habit of reading around the book, listening to talks, to seminars, to lessons from all sorts of people, especially scientists, because I like science a lot. I have no background as such, nowhere near like Munir and many of our friends. It's just that I like it very much. And so from that, I took a few notes that I thought would, from contemporary thinkers and professors that made Gabriel Delanne's thoughts, just straight away. All right, so I added, I think the next slide is just a cover of the first editions, or the very first editions of this monumental work that I would invite everyone who's even slightly inclined to know more about mediumship to take some time and read it. It's not something that you're going to read quickly, but it's something that you read along the time, because it's so rich with cases, study cases and examples that I'm sure everyone's going to find something to get really hooked on it. Okay, so my first quote, the one that I found, is this. And it says, science can sometimes sound arrogant and sometimes sounds like it's the discipline that say why you're not right. Okay, we're always wrong. And that's from Professor Brian Cox, an astrophysicist, an English astrophysicist. And he said, it's not the discipline saying that you're not right. It's saying what we found out. So everything that's being said is something that we've discovered. It's not stuff that someone made up. All we know comes from direct observation. And I think we should be humble when talking about science. So that is, that resonated so strongly, because that was, to me, exactly the thought of Gabriel Delanne in his work. He wanted to run this research, apologies for the comment, and he wanted to do it in the most scientific procedure that they had, and with the highest neutrality, in the sense that it didn't matter what he believed personally. What he made it very clear is that he wanted to pursue a topic to prove what mediumship was not before he said what it is. So, of course, he had his own ideas, but so then he started the book. His introduction is really striking, because he starts with a question. It looks like a rhetorical question, but it isn't. I think it's the next one, please. Look. And it says, what is Spiritism? To the scholars, it's a superstition of the populace. So the Catholic and Protestant clergy is a demonic practice. And he was very open about it. He knew who he was addressing his ideas, his work to. And because he thought that at that point, and that was, he was writing in the year 1900, and if you think that all the literature, the Spiritist literature, very serious books from Kardec until his time, have been published, and there was so much information, and still at that time it was frustrating to think that the idea of Spiritism up to then was pretty much about dancing tables and knocking doors and all that sort of extraordinary phenomena. Okay, but no one really delving into what it meant. So his introduction, the next one, please. In his, so that's it. He thought that he not only read, he praised, and he absolutely was devoted to the ideas, to the classic, to the pure Spiritist teachings. But he was, he checked. And he said, why are there so many distortions? Why are people coming up with some exotic ideas about what it is and what it isn't? Have they not read the Spirit's book, for example? Have they not read the Medium's book, especially in this case? And he found out that he checked with colleagues and friends in many countries, and he found, well, look, the teachings that people receive in every single country are exactly the same, are precisely the same. So what's wrong? What's the problem? Why are there misconceptions about what mediumship is, and in the end, what Spiritism is? His conclusion was, well, the people don't read it. They're not studying hard enough, or they're not reading the books often enough. But that still wasn't enough reason to bring scientific proof to anything. So he had to devise a process of developing this very encompassing research. He had doubts. He knew the criticals and the opponents were wrong. So he had to say why they were wrong. So it's just like in the first quote, it's not just saying you're wrong, you have to say why and give enough evidence to prove that hypothesis. Yeah. So in his, I think it's the next one, please. Then he has his, his aim was to use scientific methodology to study mediumship in general, but because it's such a broad subject, he focused, his emphasis was in automatic writing of hysterics, which is an old-fashioned word for the patients in hospitals who had neurological, psychological, that was the word. It's not disease. It's I'll find a word in a minute. But anyway, it's people who were being treated for disorders. That's what I want. For neurological, psychological, and psychophysiological disorders. Then that opposed to the mechanical writing on mediums. And once he had done that, then he thought he could bring the absolute proof of communication with the world of spirits. That was it. So then, the next one, please. And that's what he said, that there's a profusion of automatic phenomena. And what matters is that the true spiritist communications are not left any longer without the credit of science. So again, it's not a matter of belief as such. It's not a matter of faith, but it's a matter of analyzing facts and measuring facts and measurements, which is a huge task, isn't it? So next, please. It says the spiritist phenomena and the automatic writing of hysterics in patients in hospitals. Spiritism is a science of observation and of research, moving from empiricism to science. So because he felt that all the criticism that he got and all the theories that were becoming more prevalent at his time, which were distorting the ideas and the studies in spiritism, the technical studies there, they were not results of thorough investigations. And for example, there was a lot of theory, there was a lot of speaking, but not so much of doing or carrying things out. And when they talk about why is this emphasis on hysterics, on the people with disorders, because these were the people who were observed the most. And it's so, well, that's all right. So you will observe a certain kind of phenomena in some certain kind of people, but hello. I don't know. Something has happened here. All right, I'm sorry.
Go on.
I was in the dark. Right. So it's either the observation of those people who were not fully aware of what they were doing, and that's what he found out. They were not fully aware, or the mediums that were observed and studied in general before his research were usually upper class, middle class, upper class people, so very well educated people who could speak several languages, had an extensive experience of traveling, of social interaction. So there were two extremes that were not fully representative of the whole spectrum of people who demonstrated consistent mediumistic behavior and phenomena. So it says no, this research is flawed because it's afraid. It is afraid. It's not a matter of being unable to. No, it's afraid of facing the truth that happens in a much broader spectrum than just these two extremes. Yeah. And the next one, please. Then he says about the influence of spirits and people. I have to see again. the thing was that he wanted to see in those phenomena that people claimed to be either fake or incredibly supernatural mediumistic psychic abilities or skills. He had to prove, on top of all that, he had to prove what was and what wasn't the influence of spirits on the person. And leading to say that because they could see people who were illiterate receiving or taking messages, writing messages in languages that they couldn't possibly know, in topics that they couldn't possibly know because they hadn't studied, they were illiterate. Mediums bringing messages about facts and things happening at a distance. So there was a huge number, and also expressing a personality that wasn't theirs. They said, well, how can this be made up? But again, they said, well, I believe, I'm pretty sure that there is an interaction, an influence of the spirits, but I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers. I suggest you go there because there's a huge list of cases, fully and well documented in detail, even the conversations and the dialogues, saying that how, on one hand, the hysterics were led to a sort of a somnambulism or a trance-induced trance, almost like hypnotism, coming out of hypnotism. And then they could do things because they had been hypnotized or close to that. So, and they had no idea of what was going on. They had no idea of what they, or remembrance of what they were writing. When on the other hand, the mediums were fully aware. They were healthy. They were in full health. They were fully aware of what was happening. So they were in control. In a way, they were in control, even though they had a muscular and nervous control. Even though they were, people would say that when a medium is writing, for example, that there's no control. That's not true. The medium has to be fit and prepared well enough to be aware, to know that the arm and hand are doing involuntary movement, but you follow the involuntary. It's a very crazy thing. You follow the involuntary movement, knowing it's happening. It's an interaction. It's a very close, very delicate interaction. But it's not as if the medium couldn't do anything. If he wanted to stop, he could. He's not completely subject to anything. Yes. So next one, please. And yeah, so just going back to what he said to confirm, to say where the research was run in many countries, in many places, and it was important to know that the information they all had was exactly the same, and that the mediums could be also working to answer questions, whether or not they would be aware of the question. That wasn't the point. But the information was there, and probably So if people don't know them well, that was from not reading the masters often enough. Okay. Next one, I don't know if I'm ahead or behind. Right, where am I? I think this is just recapping what I said about the different skills and the aptitudes. And he says combining electricity and energy. Who said that more later? Tesla, didn't he? Didn't he say the universe is energy and electricity, etc., etc.? So they were very. He was so much in tune with so many serious researchers. So combining electricity and energy, the medium's will, and the medium's discipline and commitment, different kinds of writing or communications can take place with or without the medium's other abilities to connect and sense the environment. And automatic writing, direct writing. And so again, he puts, it's important in this phenomenon that there is the medium's will. So he accepts to do it. He accepts the task. And he commits to it. So being able is not enough. Wanting to do it is just not enough without the commitment. And the combination of that, the development of this discipline will lead to the different phenomena. So there is an awareness, and that's important. And he talks about the different kinds of writing, direct, inspired, writing, precipitated. So higher and lesser levels of interference of the medium's will. In this, am I correct saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from writing is one thing, but it could be drawing, could be painting, could be anything, because all the expressions of what a spirit, which was a person, used to do in his materialized life, incarnated life, he could still carry on doing after his physical body was gone, was dead. But the person, the abilities and his knowledge were still there. So now what he needed to express that was this close and delicate interaction, interface with the medium. Yeah. And I put, this is a very long chapter, and I found this repeating what in his own experience this Professor Hislop said, repeating Delanne's conclusion. So in his own experience, this professor said, I've been talking to my dead father, my brother, my uncles. Whatever supernatural powers we may be pleased to attribute to the medium, Mrs. Piper's secondary personalities, it would be difficult to make me believe that these secondary personalities could have thus completely reconstituted the mental personality of my relatives. Again, Delanne found out so that one of the theories was that, this is not what's happening. It's not an interference of a spirit, but it's probably a latent subconscious knowledge that's coming to surface on that medium. Or then it's a split personality. So in his everyday life, Mrs. Piper would be behaving one way, but then another part of her personality would surface and she would start writing. This is how about the personality of the person, of the message, in the message or in the communication that I receive. Yeah. What do you say about that? And the next one, please. Right. That's led me to my second quote was that there is something, that's by Einstein, he said, there's something invisible that I cannot see, like the magnetic field attracting a compass needle to point to north. This was something that intrigued him as a boy when he was given a compass. He said, okay, it's moving. Obviously, something is making it move. It's not magic. And he says, if you look at nature carefully and really pay attention, and if you're lucky, you can catch a glimpse of something deeply hidden. I believe, this is my take, that is one of the feelings that led Delanne to go so seriously and so profoundly, so deeply into his studies. Because it simply wasn't enough to say, oh no, this is psychological. Yes, but why? Why would it be? Or why would it not be? Oh, this is a mediumistic event. So why is it? Or why is it not? So it's not just enough. So looking really closely, as Einstein said, to find something that's deeply hidden, but it's there. He knew it was there. Yeah. And so the second part, so the first part was, to pose the framework, the background where he was going to work. The second part is where he brings all the theories, all his contemporaries' theories, to prove or disprove each one. So again, it's a very involved chapter, part of the book, in which he's going to study animism. He's going to study and decide and define what is a true or a false medium. He's going to go back to the Spiritist teachings, especially in the Medium's book. He goes back to the source and comes back to prove or disprove it. He studies in details physically the physiology of the automatic writing or the mechanic writing. He talks about latent memory. What is it and why it isn't the case with mediums, or how it could be at the stage of development. You see, it's not just black and white. It's got all these stages to get to his conclusion. Somnambulism as well as a state, how it works, why it works, and how can you say that a medium is in any state related to somnambulism, as they used to say. He also goes into the contribution of other senses like premonition, telepathy, clairvoyance, all the sensory skills, how they interact and how they merge together in a medium's work. Because you notice then in his research, that his body of work, that it wasn't just a matter of writing, but it was pretty much in many cases, the writing was also associated with other skills, of other abilities in this, that comes from what he called the very intricate physiology of a medium. He was it's not the person's just writing, but he could see who was writing. So it was the medium letting his arm at the service of writing, but he could see the mentor, or he could be apart from his body and describe what the spirit was doing, or he could have information by telepathy, or knowing it, or hearing it, because it happens in so many cases. Sometimes you can know it in your head, or you can hear it in your head, or you can see it. You can, the medium can be inspired. All these nuances were taken very bravely. So he did not want to avoid or skip anything. So he says, well, if my contemporaries were afraid of addressing some issues, I want to go to see each and every one of them in depth before I come to a conclusion. Yeah. And so in the part two, in this part two, he says mediumship has special characteristics that do not allow it to be mistaken for sheer automatism. The automatic writing is unconscious. The writing in mental health patients is not spontaneous. The true mediumistic writing requires mental control, the use of muscular control and sensations, acting upon the nervous system and mechanisms, so that writing occurs to answer questions, for example, whether or not the medium is aware of those questions. It's not important that the medium knows the questions. And in my experience, I would say many times I would rather I didn't know. Because it was the receiver's reaction would reassure me that what I was doing was genuine and honest, of course, but it was genuine. So if people had a question, I would take down the writing, the answer. But I said, don't tell me the question. Tell me if that answers your question. And it's a brave. I'm sorry, but I'm not blowing my own trumpet. But because it's a brave thing. It takes guts to do that. Because when you putting oneself to test, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's risking hearing that the whole thing is flawed, that perhaps I'm not being exactly what I think I'm doing, what I think I am, But sometimes you have to take the risk. You have to. If you want to do an honest investigation, you have to. That's the only way, and that's what he did. And I was really glad to hear that. Very glad. So, moving on. So this, in his conclusion, part 3 is all about his conclusions. When he says there are multiple proof of communication from the spirits through mechanical writing. He talks about the characteristics of writing and how the skills are developed, how the mediums learn to write. Just as one learns to write at school, at primary school, learning the first letters, the first signs, the first lights, the first loops. Many mediums are taught like that because they have to learn. It's learn to control or not control the. I have to keep moving this mouse, otherwise, until they're able to scribble a few lines and write connected, have developed connected writing and texts. So it does start like that. Only the teacher is working from a different level, from a different dimension. And his work describes how that works, how that develops. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it. So he says, well, something's changed, but anyway, God, it was meant to be connected, okay? So, no, that's all right. I think the next one, my charts changed, but anyway, it doesn't matter. What he's saying is that, so you've got, as a group, terrestrial humanity, not to use a spiritist word as for incarnated humanity, and there is a posthumous humanity, as he said, not to use the spiritist word discarnate. Yeah, so it's a scientific research, not a spiritist scientific research. He wanted to be very careful like that. So his choice of words was careful. So, and now I can't read it. It says, so there is a material organization, the medium's own spirit. So there are the 3 factors, and independent spiritual intervention. So again, the phenomena is based in these 3 factors: the material aspect of it, the medium's own spirit, and someone else, and the spiritual intervention, which is independent from the medium. And that's incredibly important. So it's not as if he splits personality or remembers something from a past, even a past life. No. There are 2 people, if you will, 2 people working together. It's an interdimensional connection and collaboration for a grandiose purpose. So, and it says mediumship is not a supernatural faculty. It depends on physiology and the nervous system. It is better manifested in good health, not exclusively, but better, because there is a physical demand on energy and sort of fitness. And it's not related to concepts of morality or ethical choices either. So it doesn't take it, it's not because the person is, it's better be, but morally advanced and has the highest ethical choices, that none of these in themselves will make a medium work to do high quality work. Yeah. And it says, because mediumship in principle is organic. What is done about it is a different story. And then comes the ethical aspect of responsibility, which then goes into the Spiritism and the Spiritist teachings. Yeah, but that's his that's his take on it. That's his conclusion. Now, go and read the book to find more about it. And finally, it says, again, Professor Brown Cox had very rightly, in my opinion, there are still great mysteries, and it's appropriate to think about what it means to be human. That's fine. The problem comes when your religion or philosophy forces you to deny some facts and measurements. But Delanne said that. In his studies, he found that many of the theories derived from the fact that the researchers were trying to avoid some of the facts and measurements right in front of them. But because it probably didn't give them the right answer, or the answers that they were looking for, the answers that their faith or their belief or their hopes were looking for. And he says, no, if you're doing the scientific work and the research and honest, straightforward work, you've got to see things for what they are. And what Delanne says, adding to this, is that he was sure, and the reason what it was the compelling thing for him to move on into this painstaking study, was that he was sure that the Spiritism would take whatever conclusion that was proven right and would incorporate it, because the principle from Kardec is that Spiritists study. And they study and they look for the truth and they face it. Don't we talk about epigenetics today? Yeah, that wasn't something in his time. But is anyone going to deny epigenetics today? No. It's an evolution of everything that's already in the master's books. And I think that's my take in this. His conclusion was beautiful. He says the absolute certainty of mediumship in communication says, after the death of their physical body, a spirit can still communicate thoughts to these delicately constituted beings, which are the mediums. This is a magnificent discovery that opens doors to a new world. And the lack of some specific knowledge may delay the process of reaching positive results. As much as switching the lights on in a dark room would impede the processing of a photograph. Well, if I wanted to learn how to develop a photograph in a dark room, the first thing you need to know is that you don't switch lights on. Yeah, but that is specific knowledge. So you can't, if you want to develop some basic, some minimum requirements have to be observed. And the development of photography, for example, is a very good example of that. How can you do that? Well, as you develop the means of observation, so you develop the procedures. Yeah, I think that's. I don't know if there is another one. Yeah. I think the previous studies were limited to making superficial analogies, taking into account only the psychophysiological aspects of writing, and therefore based their conclusions on incomplete observations. Like I said, only the hysteric patients or who were influenced by the observer. So it can't be scientific like that. And these spontaneous cases of mediumistic writing were not observed, which did not comply with scientific standards in the 1900s, and as a consequence caused a delay in understanding the phenomena. Again, the methodology has to be sound. Yeah, it has to be impartial. And next one, please. And finally, he says, the human soul is splendidly manifested in the phenomena of clairvoyance, transmission of thoughts, and telepathy, which show that man contains an intelligence which escapes in part the laws of space and time, which govern inert matter. Physiology, psychology, and physics are interested in the problems that the new faculties of the human being and the psychic communications between the living race. And finally, I think is the last one, under the irresistible impulse of these new ideas that the spiritist press has sown for 50 years all over the world, 50 from in his time. We see the block of prejudices and errors crumbling. Many are the great intelligences which have already communicated with the invisible to imagine that their voices may not be muffled. And soon the certainty of immortality will shine brightly like a great beacon to illuminate the evolutionary march of humanity. I think that's brilliant, and that's how he closes his conclusion. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Faye. You see how rich the book is, how packed with information, and the brilliant work again that Delanne has done. Usually he's very scientific in the way that he does. I think he didn't do all the experiments. What he does is what we call literature review, and he's very good at that. He goes and studies all that there is there and sieve through them, and then bring all this information in his very beautiful work. We have some comments here. Elsa, hello Elsa, good to have you here with us.
Nice to hear.
We have Rosa Maria. According to Kardec, there is usually a combination of animism and mediumship during the communication, between the spiritual and material world. That's quite interesting. Yes, there is. We are not an empty machine. We have our history, and of course, the spirits use, you know, us as an instrument. We are not an empty. It's like a computer without an operating system. We have our operating system, and whatever software we install on the computer, we have the operating system to, running behind that. Thanks, Rosa Maria. Saul Waters, our dear friend Saul. Hello, Saul. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So,
We have another comment from Rosa Maria. Even in mechanical writing, there's cooperation of the medium concerning his energy and the will to work as an instrument, including his mental archives that can be accessed by the spirit who wants to communicate. Yeah, that's what we just commented. Thank you, Rosa Maria. Very active participation. And so again, oh, sorry, I've gone back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Marco Davis. Wonderful book called that's called After Death. Just had it in French, but I have had one translated for Esperanto. Love it. And
Wonderful.
yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, Faye, I'll ask you if you have a final comments to make before we go to the announcements.
Yes, I would. Would you mind? I think. I don't know if if the slides are still there. I don't know.
Yes, they are.
It's all right.
Yeah.
There's one with the mother and child, and
After this one?
that would be. I think it's slide number 29.
29. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That I would say, well, it's Mother's Day, so.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a mediumistic painting done with fingertips. You see, look, it's beyond the person's ability to do the drawing. But there's an expression, there's tenderness. And if you show me the next one, please. Yes. That's a child.
Wow,
And the tiny, delicate details that's done with the fingertip.
Wow.
To me,
who is the author of that?
Sorry?
Who is the author of that?
I don't know. He didn't sign. He didn't sign. I thought it was Rockwell, but I'm not sure.
Beautiful.
Sure. Yeah. But you see the detail on the eye, the nose.
Yeah.
This is an incredible result of beauty and delicacy in something that's done so quickly, so roughly.
Yeah.
I think
very interesting. Thank you so much, Faye, for bringing this and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Faye. Let's go to our announcements now. So next month, on the 4th of June, we'll have here with us our dear friend, Dr. Vanessa Celoni. She will be talking about Delanne's work, The Evolution of the Soul. So same time, 7 p.m. UK time, 4th of June, again a Sunday, we will have the episode number 6 of this series about Gabriel Delanne and his work. Just a quick reminder, we have a study group online every Wednesday, 12 noon, London time. offered by the Spiritist Center for Peace. So everyone can join at the moment. The group is studying Heaven and Hell and the Gospel according to Spiritism. So if you have, some time available on Wednesdays around lunchtime, please join the study. Also, we also have the study of the Medium's book online, and this is on Saturdays, 10:30 a.m. UK time. It's a book, very, very interesting book, and we do the study with the participation of everyone who is in the room, and the three coordinating the study, but not lecturing, just coordinating the study, Guilherme Dias, Charles Kempter, and myself. And finally, we want to thank Kardec Radio for allowing us to use their studio and making this broadcast possible. So our heartfelt thank to all of them. So that's what we had for today. Hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you all in a month's time, a bit less this time, in 3 weeks, so on the 4th of June, for another episode of the series, Gabriel, Delanne, and his work. Thank you very much. Thank you, Faye. Great pleasure to have you here. Okay.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.